I want to start out by saying you don't have to believe anything I'm about to say. I don't care if anyone does. Enjoy this as a spooky story for Halloween because I know how this can sound. And that's fine with me, I just thought it might be a good story to tell for the spooky season. So grab some candy, turn the lights out, and let me tell you about growing up in a haunted house. I was born and raised in a house in North Carolina. It was a decent size for me, my mom, and my dad. And no, it was nothing like what you'd think when you hear the words haunted house. It was bright, open windows all through the house. No part of this house was dark or dingy. As long as the sun was out, you didn't need to turn the lights on. I didn't live in the middle of nowhere either. In fact, I lived not far from Main Street with houses on each side of me. It was a great place to grow up, if not for one thing, which of course was that it was haunted. At first I didn't understand this. I've always felt weird and scared at my house, but I didn't know why, especially at night. It almost felt like a different house. Even though I always felt something there, it was so much stronger and scarier at night. The earliest memories I have of this feeling was in my room. For no good reason, when I was really young, I hated my windows. I always felt like something was watching me. It made me hate sleeping in my room. Yes, this could be a stupid kid being stupid and scared of nothing, but it does lead to weirder things happening. It also made me really hate looking out windows for a very long time. And again, it also made me hate sleeping in my room. So instead I slept in the living room a lot. I think up until I was 7 or 8, but even there I still felt something. I just ignored it by having the TV on, and this is probably one of the first memories I have of something weird going on. I remember one night clearly even now. See, while I was allowed to sleep in the living room with the TV on, I had to keep the volume off. And this night I remember wishing I had it on really badly. I don't remember why, just that I really wanted it on. But I ended up going to sleep with it still off. Next thing I know, my dad is waking me up yelling at me for turning the volume up loud. I should say that we had surround sound and he said it was all the way up. Even as a kid, I slept hard, so I didn't wake up until he woke me up. So I didn't know how loud it was, but I know he was pissed at me. I told him I didn't do it, that I was asleep the whole time, but he, of course, didn't believe me. We had one of those rack things to hold the remotes, and they were still in there. Which means I didn't hit the volume button, and I was out cold, so I couldn't have gotten up and turned it on. I remember a few other times either waking up to the volume being up, or being woken up by my dad yelling at me. Never believing me when I told him I didn't do it. I was confused and started wondering if I was doing it somehow. After some time, I slowly stopped sleeping in the living room because of this. Now fast forward a few years. I still got weird feelings and felt like I was being watched throughout the house at night, but nothing happened until I was around 13. Up until now, I wasn't sure what was going on. I don't even remember ever thinking my house was haunted. Just thought it was nothing, and thanks to my dad, thought it was in my head. But this all changed when I started seeing something in the hall. But before I get ahead of myself, let me go back some. Like I said before, I never could shake the feeling that something was there. It used to be in the window next to my bed, but over time, I started feeling it more in the living room and in the hall outside of my bedroom. While it scared me as a little kid, it didn't start feeling dark until I got older. It slowly started feeling darker, and I felt a hatred to it. I was never scared of the dark until this thing started to show itself. It was to the point that when I had to go to the bathroom at night, I'd stick my hand out into the hall real quick to turn the light on and run to the bathroom. All the while I would keep my head down and not look into the hall or the mirror in my bathroom. And I'm not about to have that happen, because if there's one thing you need to know about me, when weird stuff happens, I'm out. I don't mess with that kind of stuff, even though it seems to like messing with me. The hall, on the other hand, I knew why I didn't like to look in there. It was there that the Shadow Man stood. No, not that Shadow Man. This isn't a Disney movie after all. The Shadow Man I'm talking about is more commonly called a shadow person. When I first saw him, I didn't know what to think of it. I thought it was just my head playing tricks on me, but the more I saw the thing, the more I started to believe it was there. It looked like a physical being standing there, only it was pitch black in color. No details could be seen on it besides the silhouette of its form. And from the silhouette, you can make out some kind of long coat. Kind of like a trench coat, but I don't know for sure. You could also see the outline of a cowboy hat or something similar. On top of this, it was tall. I don't remember just how tall, and maybe it seemed taller because I was kind of a shorty, even more so back then. But what I do remember is that it towered over me, and that was enough for me. Now I know what you're probably thinking. It was probably just something in the hall making the shadow. My dad tried to tell me the same thing. He was telling me it was just a shadow from the windows just down the hall, and I thought that too. Problem was, there wasn't anything that could have cast the shadow. There wasn't anything in front of the window or outside of it, and the thing wasn't always there. If it was coming from either, it shouldn't have just appeared out of nowhere one day. It should have always been there. Plus the darker feeling I got around the same time that this thing showed up. Trust me, I didn't just jump to it being a ghost or anything like that. I tried to figure out what was going on. On top of these two things, other strange things started to happen, building up to probably one of the worst experiences I've ever had in the paranormal. I don't know the exact timeline of most of this stuff. I don't even remember if this stuff started at the same time that the Shadow Man showed up, before it, or after first seeing it. I just know all this was connected. I think one of the first of these experiences, if not the first, was when I was in the laundry room. It was a small room with windows across two of the walls. And in the corner that the windows met, we had a place to put our clean clothes that we didn't put up yet. One night I was going in there to get some clothes for school the next day. While I was out there, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched by something outside of the window right next to me. I tried to ignore it, but I was getting freaked out just standing there. I don't know how long I was out there. The only thing I know for sure was that the feeling was building up steadily. It felt like something was trying to tell me to leave, and when I didn't do so, it got mad. And the next thing I know, the window right next to me started to rattle. Now there are a few things I need to point out as to why this scared me to the point that it did. While I did live in a one-story house, the house wasn't on even ground. So the front half of our house was on ground level, while the back looked like it was a two-story house. Along with my room and the bathroom, the laundry room was part of the back half of the house, which means there was no way for someone to actually be outside of this window. Not that I wouldn't have been able to see them. Another thing you need to understand is that this was my childhood home. By the time that all of this started to happen, I already lived in this house for 14 years. The only time I've ever seen those windows rattle is when there was very strong winds. And every time that would happen, you would hear whistling long before it would get to that point. And the last thing is, there was no trees anywhere near that window to hit it. There was absolutely no reason why it should have rattled like it did. To say the least, I got the hell out of there. I think after this happened, I stopped going into the room after it got dark. I still felt something staring at me every time I went in there, but I would do whatever I could not to go in there after dark. The other thing I have very vivid memories of was in the bathroom. While I always felt something weird about our mirror, it wasn't the scariest thing to happen in there. At least I never actually saw anything there. I just had a really weird feeling about it. The shower, on the other hand, well, let's just say it got to the point that I would do whatever I had to not take one at night. I don't know how common this is, but our shower was dumb in its design that it had a window in it. I don't know what it's called, but it had a glass in it that blurred and distorted things. It's kind of the same thing that a lot of the glass shower doors have, but basically you couldn't see into the shower outside of blurred shapes, and the same goes for looking out of it. The reason I'm telling you this is because, once again, I had something messing with a window that I was standing beside. This time it was probably the most vulnerable position for a 14-year-old girl to be in. It started the same as in the laundry room. I would feel something staring at me, but I would ignore it. Because even though I was used to the window, I was a teenage girl, and of course I was a bit paranoid. But the feeling didn't stop no matter how much I tried to fight it. And once again, the thing I felt was bad. This time though, it knocked on the window. Like it actually sounded like someone was on the other side knocking on the window. And when I looked, there was a pair of red eyes staring at me. Yes, I know how much this sounds like a crappy horror movie, and I wouldn't have believed it myself if it didn't happen to me. And I bet you can guess what I did. I ran like the bitch I am. I still had soap on me and barely got my housecoat on before I ran to my parents' room to tell them. I'm pretty sure I took the glass door off the tracks getting out of that shower too. I can't remember if they actually checked the window or not, but I do know for sure once again my dad brushed it off and told me it was all in my head. So I finished my shower sitting on the floor, 'cause I'm a bitch. After that, I hated taking a shower at night because I always felt watched, and sometimes, whatever it was, would knock on the window. I never saw the eyes again, luckily. I was scared one day I would again. Other than these things, I don't remember much outside of the fear I had in some places in my house at night. That was until one night. After a while of going back and forth with my dad about it being in my head or it being real, I started to question what I was actually seeing. I started to question what I was seeing in the hall. So one night I finally built up some courage, and when I needed to go to the bathroom, I decided to get a good look at what I was seeing, or see if my dad was right. I stared at this thing for a long time, trying to figure it out. Trying to figure out if it was real or if it was in my head. But this thing was there. It was a solid mass. And if I wasn't sure that it was truly there in my hallway, this thing moved. It moved, and my dumbass didn't run. The one time I should have run, I didn't. The reason I say this is because it didn't just move, it turned to me and lunged at me. As it did, I could see the outline of the arms change into massive claws, and the thing pushed me into the wall behind me. I was frozen for what felt like forever, but was probably only a minute or two. By the time I felt like I could move again, I realized that the thing was gone. The feeling of something being in the house didn't leave, but after this moment, I never actually saw the shadow man again. I still could feel something watching me throughout the house. I still hated taking a shower after it was dark, and would turn the lights on before I went out to get a drink or go to the bathroom. But I never saw that thing again. This isn't the only thing I've experienced in the house though, but I might save that for another time. The experiences I've had after this was right after I lost my dad. And with the anniversary of that day coming up next month, I don't know if I feel like talking about that right now. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't anything bad. But because it was so wrapped up with his death, I don't know if I can talk about those at the moment. So, on that depressing note, that will be it for today. Like I said at the beginning, you don't have to believe any of this. I just thought it would be fun to tell this story since it's the spooky season. And I hope you enjoyed this. And I hope you all have a happy Halloween. See you later!